We'll now move on to just our next speaker, Marcia Riordan. Marcia is... I first met Marcia many years ago when she was working at the Children's Hospital as an immunologist and microbiologist, and she was already at that stage, again at a young age, probably 5, was dealing with some of the really difficult issues relating to genetic testing and the idea of fetal surgery for transplants. There's all kinds of rather gruesome things being raised as questions in her hospital, and she was already seeking advice and trying to advise those she worked with. Even though she was working in immunology and microbiology, she had an opportunity to relate to a number of the healthcare professionals. From that time, Marcia, like all our other speakers, found that her career path changed, and she was invited to head up the Life Office in the Archdiocese of Melbourne 10 years ago, was it, Marcia? 10 years ago. Now, if there's anybody that is the gracious and beautiful face and gentle face of the culture of life, it's Marcia Riordan. I think we really owe Marcia an extraordinary debt. If anyone is the face of nascent life and the nascent beginning of a new culture of life, it's Marcia. She wouldn't want me to say this because most of her work is done on the interpersonal, person to person, person to priest, priest to carer, pro-life supporter, counsellor. She does that kind of hard, hidden work, as well as put together some of the most beautiful publications that we have in Australia. So Marcia really is a very special part of our Australian nascent human life promotion. Marcia is currently the Executive Officer in the Archdiocese of Melbourne's Life, Marriage and Family Office. She's also on the Bishop's Life Council, and I think is a very trusted advisor to many of the bishops who share and have been inspired by her extraordinary vision here. She, if anyone has worked one-on-one in the parishes, she has, if anyone is the face of the healing aspect of the gospel of life, this is Marcia, and she won't want me to go any further about it, but I can just tell you, you don't know what she does for life. She's going to talk to us about some really wonderful developments in the promotion of this healing aspect of nascent human life and how practical it is and how promising are its steps and stages. So I'll let her describe that to you, and again you'll have opportunities to ask her further about it. Thank you. Let's welcome Marcia. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Isn't it lovely to have a friend introduce you that can tell all your secrets and be very generous in that introduction. So thank you very much, Hannah. I'm sure I don't quite deserve all that. I'd like to start by saying how delighted I am to be with you all today and how encouraging it is for us to see so many of you here from all around Australia who have a great interest and a great concern for some of the same issues that we do. And so that really is very personally encouraging for me. I'd like to thank you too for all the great years of work that you've already been doing long before any of us ever arrived on the scene. There's so many campaigns that I could mention that you know only too well how much work and effort you've put into. But there's one in particular I want to say thank you for, and it again relates back to the legislation that was passed, sadly, as Joe and Anna and others have mentioned here in Victoria in the last few years. But one campaign I know that you've got so much more goodwill and raised so much community interest around, and that was around the child destruction laws and this campaign that Robin was very much involved in, which was the They Need You campaign. I heard back from so many people how they hadn't realised and they didn't know, and I think that's so much a part of our job is to raise awareness of things that people don't know and hadn't realised, but to do it in a way that we build bridges and we unite people, and it's not just seen as those crazy Catholics or those crazy pro-lifers, but something that everyone feels outraged about and something that's done in a way that everyone wants to be part of. So thank you again, Robin and Madge, and everyone that was involved in all that work. So Anna and Robin and Madge and others have asked me to share some of the work today that we've been doing with Walking with Love, the ideas that lay behind it and how it's now developing. So just a bit of background to start with. A few years ago, the Australian Catholic Bishops' Conference set up a task force on abortion. And that task force sat for a year and had a number of meetings around Australia. And it's now become the Catholic Bishops' Conference Life Council, which I'm delighted Anna's now a part of. But before Anna was appointed, many of you will know of the work of Mary Ullman representing the Catholic Women's League, and also Margaret Nancurrow. So you should rightly feel very much a part of this work that we've all been doing. The Life Council and the Task Force became increasingly concerned about Australia's high rate of abortion. As many of you will no doubt be aware, we have one of the highest rates of abortion in the world, only behind the US, Sweden and New Zealand. We know that something like 90,000 abortions occur each year in Australia, a number I think most of us find hard to comprehend, but often I find people relate to these figures much better, and that's that at least 1 in 3 women in Australia will have an abortion at some stage in their life, unless we're able to reach them, or that at least 1 in 4 pregnancies end in abortion in Australia. So the task force set about thinking, what can we as a church do to try and respond more effectively and more compassionately to those who are involved in abortion? And so one of the ideas that we came up with a whole list of things which we're slowly working our way through, but one of the things that we first did was to hold a series of symposia in each capital city around Australia. We could see a very great need in this area, and we wanted to develop something where the church could be seen and could be responding more effectively to this great need. We became aware that all too often much of the pro-life debate tends to focus on the unborn child and its right to life. And that is very important. But we realise too that most people only ever hear that the church says no to abortion, and they never hear the rest of the church's message. So we reflected that a few years earlier, Melinda Tankard-Reist had published a series of interviews about Australian women's experience of abortion. In doing so, she did us a great service. She lifted the lid on abortion, on the grief women experience, and the sense of abandonment that often drives them to choose abortion. Her book draws on the personal experiences of many women, and so we gained great insights into women's experience of unplanned pregnancy and abortion from Melinda's work and other similar research. So we learned too that all too often abortion is presented to women as a choice. They're told that it's just a simple operation that will allow them to get on with their lives. Many women told us they felt compelled to choose abortion at someone else's demand, often their boyfriend or their parents. Often they found the people they could usually rely on most for support, their friends and family, were just not there when they most needed them. We know too from research and from some of this work that something like 70% of women go against their own conscience in choosing abortion, and that 80% of these women would have kept their baby if someone had offered them emotional help and support. And all too often, as we are learning, her choice has become her problem. And very sadly for those involved in the church, and for many of us here today, many of these very same women fear approaching the church for help. They think that they will be judged and condemned. And sadly, many of them have told us that the church is the very last place they would think of going to for pregnancy support or for healing after an abortion. So the task force became convinced that the insights we had gained from the experiences of women were key to this issue. Women were the ones who ultimately choose life for their child. So if we wanted to help the unborn child, we first need to support their mothers. Widening our focus then to include women does not involve a radical shift in thinking, but a slight change in emphasis and language. And it gives us new opportunities to develop a fuller and more compassionate and more complete expression of the Catholic position on abortion. So the task force felt it was not good enough to just say no to abortion, that we must offer practical help. We felt confident that John Paul II had pointed us in this very same direction. He left us with some key pastoral insights into the problem of abortion in his great encyclical, The Gospel of Life, where he has written especially to women who've experienced an abortion and encouraged them to seek healing and help. So John Paul II's words are not words of condemnation, but of tenderness, compassion and hope. We also felt very moved by his call to stand in radical solidarity with women. But most people have never heard the good news about the Catholic Church's teaching on abortion, or about Blessed John Paul II's special words to women, recently repeated by Pope Benedict. So we wanted to, in fact, help to bring them the rest of this message, the entire Catholic story on abortion, or as I like to say, just the rest of the story. We wanted them to know that rather than judging or condemning, we are offering understanding and compassion. We are working to offer women genuine alternatives to abortion so that no one feels compelled to choose abortion. And in our experience, the more complete message tends to resonate with ordinary Catholics, as many of them know someone, perhaps a friend or relative, who may have experienced an abortion and is not doing so well. We wanted to let them know that we're here to offer them love, help and hope. We were here for women, men, siblings, grandparents and anyone who might need support and help. We know that this approach also tends to build bridges with people and help unite people rather than to divide them. So the task force thought that a series of symposia might be one way of building on the lived experiences of women, engaging ordinary Catholics and sharing the rest of the story. So since that first successful series of symposia, Walking with Love has developed into a number of resources, ideas and parish-based initiatives. We hope that Walking with Love will continue to grow and to develop and to spark new ideas. Bishop Eugene Hurley, the chair of the task force, encouraged us saying, "Catholics have a responsibility to be the touch of Christ in the world, but not simply in an academic way. We've got to walk with people in a practical, loving, compassionate way that makes a real difference to their lives. We need to offer to support women facing unplanned pregnancies and to reach out to those who've already experienced an abortion, as well as their husbands, partners and families. Through Walking with Love, we wanted to promote pastoral and practical assistance and have therefore developed a number of resources to help us find new opportunities to share our message and to help reach people.